All right, we're gonna see if it's gonna work here. This is from my phone. Let's see. Let's see. All right, this is from my phone. Lost the internet, guys. It's absolutely dead here, and I completely apologize for that. Let me see if it's still dead. No, it's up. Does this look okay? Let me know if this is gonna work. Sorry. How's the audio here? I'm using nothing but my phone, so I don't know if this is gonna work or not. Never tried it before. Let me know if the audio is good. This is live on nothing but my data. So, how is the audio? Audio's good? Do I need to speak up? Or can you hear me okay? Do I need to speak up or? We got 9 people on live for the second round of Coffee with Rich after the first one crashed and burned. Sorry about that, folks. Don't know what's going on with that. Sound is good? All right. Well, then we'll roll with it. Good morning and welcome again to Coffee with Rich. This is the second attempt at Coffee with Rich this morning. I am Rich Brown, the co-host of the American Warrior Show, America's #1 podcast when it comes to self-defense. Hey, like, share. If you're a coin member, let me know where you're at and what your coin number is. I have a genuine tumbler here somewhere. About a week or so ago, Elkie Monroe won one of these on our random drawing. And if we hit 50 live viewers, somebody will win that bad boy again. So I got a couple things to talk to you about. As always, we're going to talk about an article you need to check out. And if you're joining me, I can barely read the comments, but I can. Looks like people are saying the video and audio is great. That's fantastic. My lovely bride, Miss Lisa, is watching. Mr. John Dalton, number 684, is watching us from Arizona. My old pal, Will Parker, is watching from Montana, the great state of Montana, number 800. Okay. As always, on Coffee with Rich, I talk to you about an article that you need to check out. Now, this article is near and dear to my heart because my mother is going through dementia right now, and her memory is really going. And the neurologist, one of the questions he asked us was, are there any firearms at home? And based on that prompt, we had John. John is one of our members. I won't say his last name in case he doesn't want to be outed on here, but John is a licensed social worker, man. And I've said this before, our American Warrior Society members are anything from SEALs to social workers, and John is one of those social workers out there doing the good work. And he wrote a 2-part article on guns and dementia, and he talks about how these are difficult decisions because adults have autonomy, man. They have rights, and we have to be respectful of that, even when they're in cognitive decline in the old age. But then we have the issue of safety and security. You know, what do we do with our family members' safety and security if they're running around with a firearm in the house and they literally think they're seeing intruders in the home and there's no one there? So we've been through that here in my family, and it is just scary and disturbing. Finally, the family has a duty to care for those aging adults, man, but you also have a duty to safety and security for your community. And sometimes that means disarming our elderly family members. So John helps us out, like when do you intervene and why, and then what does intervention look like that's going to keep your family members safe. And again, if you're just joining us, man, good morning on this Friday after Thanksgiving morning, Black Friday. Rich Brown's birthday. Your old pal Rich Brown turns another year older today. I know I don't look a day I don't look a day older, but here we are. I've got my combat cardigan on this morning, rocking American Warrior Society swag underneath. And if you want to check out, we don't sell the combat cardigan yet, maybe we should, but if you want to check out some American Warrior Society swag, go on the AmericanWarriorSociety.com. You don't have to be a member to support what Mike and I are doing. Go on the AmericanWarriorShow.com and you can pick up some swag as well. Speaking of American Warrior Show, guys, gals, got a really good show for you that Mike just did with Justin Allison, show number 205. And Justin talks to you about developing a fighting functional fitness program. Well, that was a mouthful. And I'm going to tell you right now, I was really reticent to whether I was going to watch this show or not, listen to this show or not, because at my age, I've seen the fitness cycle go back and forth between what works and what doesn't. But I want to tell you, this was a phenomenal show. You're definitely going to want to check this out if you're interested in what the latest science has to say about fitness. And as I understand it, Justin is a really strong, really capable grappler. I did actually get to meet our guest for show number 205 briefly at Clinch MMA when I was visiting my old pal Mike Seeklander in Tulsa. So again, if you're just joining us, make sure you like and share. I know that we're pulling an audible this morning by having coffee with Rich on my phone, so you got a narrower view of my office. But I appreciate you joining me. Don't know what happened to the Wi-Fi, folks, but it crashed hard. So as always, I talked to you about an article. I talked to you about a show. But a couple weeks ago, I was asked a question I did not have an answer to, so I had to do some research on it. The question was, what do I think about sanctuary counties? A lot of states right now are enacting these Second Amendment sanctuary counties, and I don't know how that will legally stand up to any kind of scrutiny. But I kind of was curious about Virginia. You know, Virginia is a southern state, and what's going on there. And I had to do a little research. Governor Northam, who just became the governor over there, former pediatric neurosurgeon, was a major in the Army. And Governor Northam is a man who despicably wore blackface. And as a Southerner, I'm going to tell you right now, that's something you just don't do. That is completely insensitive. It's never appropriate. And Governor Northam thought it would be cute to do that in college, standing next to another student dressed as a Klansman. So it was just absolutely disgusting. He was known as some sort of racial slur, which I'm not going to get into. You know, this is a guy that brags, Governor Northam, about restoring the voting rights to 22,000 felons. And now he's given them the ability to vote for him and others like him. And he's made some comments about third trimester abortions, I think, that are very insensitive. I'm not going to tell you where you should be on that issue. I'm not going to tell you where I'm at on that issue. What I'm going to tell you is, if you go back and watch what he said on that interview, I think it's pretty damn disturbing. So you got all this stuff swirling around, and Governor Northam comes out and says, I am going to make it my priority in the 2020 session to enact some gun control. Now, he has the power to do it because Democrats hold the House and the Senate in Virginia now. So I think that's why you see these counties rushing to enact some Second Amendment sanctuary language and stuff. So then you have Virginia Bill SB 64, which has some really scary language in it, especially for people like my old friend Mike Seeklander, who makes his living going around training people with firearms. It also makes it really tough for people that are going around and that teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Krav Maga, some of these other things. And people can say, well, Rich, you're being alarmist, but I'm going to say that the devil's in the details. Read the second part of that bill, and it will scare the crap out of you, because it depends how it's going to be, how the legislators are going to interpret that language, or if they modify that any, it could really be troublesome for anybody. So I'm going to leave it at that. Read the language for yourself and see what she says. Alan Kelly says, we are fighting for our lives here in Virginia. And Alan, of course, is retired. I believe you're state trooper, right, Alan, up there in Virginia? So you know what I'm talking about. We also have Joe Morrissey up in Virginia. What's going on up there, Alan? I'd say it's absolutely bananas. Joe Morrissey just won a Democratic House seat, and Joe Morrissey did time in jail for sex with a teenager. Not when he was a teenager, but when he was like a 50-year-old man, he's having sex with a 17-year-old intern. Did jail time for it, was disbarred over it, and won 60% of the vote. So, loony times up there. So I wanted to kind of, the reason I'm talking about all that, we don't normally get into that kind of stuff here, but I felt bad that I didn't have an answer for someone who was on Coffee with Rich a few weeks ago. And I had to dig into it a little bit to find out what the heck was going on up there in Virginia and some of the other states. Why do they feel that they have to enshrine this one part of our Constitution? And it's crazy times we're living in. Pay attention, get involved in votes, all I can tell you, folks. And here's another event that's kind of weighing on my heart a little bit. You know, this guy, Lieutenant John Mitchell up in Blackwell, Oklahoma, was just indicted by a grand jury for second-degree murder. Not sure if you saw that or not, but back in May the 20th, Lieutenant Mitchell was on duty, and he gets a call from dispatch of shots fired coming from a white Ford, not white Ford pickup, some sort of white pickup. And as they go to investigate where these shots are going on, dispatch comes on and says this has happened all over town. The reports are flooding in of shots being fired from a white pickup at different locations around the town. This is at 3 a.m. in the morning, folks. And I can't imagine not a whole lot's going on at 3 a.m. in the morning in Blackwell, Oklahoma. So Mitchell and other officers locate the truck driven by, and I'm going to mispronounce this woman's name because it is a female, Michael Ann Godsey. She's a 34-year-old female. A chase ensued. Gunfire was exchanged by both parties. Ms. Godsey had shot at law enforcement officers at least twice, shot at her mother twice, shot at other citizens multiple times. So basically what it sounds like to me is some sort of active shooter from a vehicle, so some sort of mobile platform. So Mitchell gets in behind her with his AR-15, goes to work, and ends her rampage. And he was ultimately cleared by an internal review of the shooting, and for whatever reason, the prosecutor decided to bring charges for second-degree murder, and now he's staring at 10 years in prison. So this is a scary time in law enforcement, man. If you're in a position as a law enforcement officer, a lieutenant, to put down an active shooter, and now you're going to be charged for second-degree murder, I just don't understand that. Now, one of the things that to the layperson may be aggravating this situation is he fired 60 rounds from his AR to stop this woman. I say, so what? If she's still fleeing, she's still firing, you still have a duty to protect her. Let's see what the comments here. I can't read a whole lot of the comments. Brett says, my daughter lives in Virginia. I told her, yeah, Virginia's bad. Doug Lightfoot is watching. Good morning, Doug. Good to have you here on my birthday. And thank you for the 18, 19 people that are on this morning. We've been talking about some wacky things, you know. We talked about what's going on in Virginia. Sanctuary counties for the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment needs a county to hide and protect it. Man, it's wacky times we are living in. We talked about article Dementia and Guns, part 1 and 2, two-part article. Then we talked about show number 205, a phenomenal show. A lot of people have told me, man, I wasn't sure I was going to listen to it. Normally I'm not into that kind of fitness stuff, but I did, and it was amazing. So please check that out. We talked about Governor, whatever this crazy dude's name is, Governor Northam. We talked about Lieutenant John Mitchell, and go and read these stories for yourself. It is, like Brett says, Brett's a retired law enforcement officer. Police officers are under attack, man. Gordon says, let our LEOs do their job. Absolutely. So let's talk about the gadget. You know, I always got a gadget for you. This morning is no different. I'm wearing my combat cardigan. It's my birthday. I had to pull an audible this morning because I couldn't do Facebook Live from my phone, from my computer, so now we're doing it from my phones. I apologize. It's been a wacky morning. Here's the deal. The gadget today, I promise, is going to be blackjacks. Here is my grandfather's blackjack. He carried as a truck driver for years. And blackjacks and saps, if you're not familiar with them, they're just basically semi-flexible impact weapons. We'll go more into this in a second, but I'm going to show you something. I'm going to let out the family secret a little bit. This piece of direct burial cable was found under my grandfather's car seat when he passed away, and we had to clean out his car. And we donated his car to a veterans cause. But my grandfather had been arrested enough to know that these are not legal everywhere. But guess what? No law against carrying a piece of direct burial cable around in your vehicle, especially if you say, my intent wasn't to go armed. Now, there's a really good article in Recoil Magazine about the history of jacks and saps. So although normally I like to give you a little bit of history, I'm going to go ahead and suspend that today. Because the history of these blackjacks and saps, any of the semi-flexible impact weapons, is really interesting and a little murky. A lot of people are saying, happy birthday, Rich. I really appreciate that. Rudy's saying happy birthday. Gordon's saying happy birthday. I appreciate you guys. And hopefully the audio is still good and the video quality is okay. So basically this is a blackjack and it's got a round tip. There's a lead weight or something in here. My grandfather's one from the 40s and 50s. I still have it, but the leather's rotted away and you can just see it's a spring and some lead shot that's molded. These little round ones here, man, are pretty dangerous because they target the force a lot better. The saps are the ones that are a little wider, and they spread out the force when they strike. Doug says, I carried an 18-inch piece of 500 MCM cable in my truck for years when I did electrical work, also a hammer. I carry a hammer in mine too. Yeah, so carrying a sap or a blackjack, depends where you do it, can really get you in some hot water with the law, so be careful. At some point, these fell out of favor with legislators, and they started writing laws to really limit where you can take these. I'm not a big fan of blackjacks, and I hate to say that because my grandfather was a huge fan, because guess what? He'd been struck in the head and almost killed with one in a robbery way back when he was a younger man. I think he had just made $6,000. I don't know if he was gambling or how he came into that amount of money, but he hid the money right before he got struck in the head with a blackjack. It's a little bit of Brown family history there. So he knew they worked and he believed in them and he carried one. But here's the thing. I'm not legally qualified to talk about the law of self-defense, but I'm going to. So bear with me for a minute. When it comes to striking somebody with these, it can be potentially lethal if you strike someone in the cranium. When I say head, there might be a time to strike someone in the jaw with it, maybe in the neck, clavicle area. But if you strike someone in the head with this thing, it's a great chance, especially this. A sap, maybe not, but this right here that directs the force could definitely be lethal. And the thing you got to ask yourself is, like Andrew Branca says, on that 20th year of prison, that 20th year you've done in prison and they're fixing to let you go, if you sit in your jail cell and look around and go, man, it was worth it, then it was worth it. I don't know how I would feel about that. But when you use one of these, what you're basically doing is elevating what normally would be an assault to an aggravated, potentially aggravated assault. Meaning that the defensive use of force with this is going to be looked at slightly differently. Now, am I saying don't use it? Not at all. What I'm saying is what are you using it against? Well, you're using it hopefully to defend yourself against a violent felonious assault. Someone's attacking you and you're using that. Yeah, someone said this is a convoy blackjack. I think that's exactly what they call this thing here. So how would that defensive force be justified? Well, if somebody's attacking you with their hands, you could probably use this by striking them in the sternum, holding this like this and just punching straight in the sternum, probably striking them here in the jaw to get a knockout. I mean, you're probably going to break their jaw, no question about it, but at least it wouldn't be lethal force. Striking them in the clavicles, large muscle mass, attack the joints, attack the hands. I think you're going to be okay there. But the minute you start striking somebody in the head, in the brain vault, man, it's going to be you're taking the reasonableness factor to a whole nother level. Now, it depends on what kind of level of force they're using against you, right? If they're coming at you with a hammer or something else or a gun, absolutely. But remember how these things work, and I think that's important. You have to cause enough pain or enough damage to get them to stop their attack. Like Doug Lightfoot says, and Doug's a police lieutenant, it could elevate it Definitely elevate the charge. Definitely elevate the thing. Mark, retired Marine, says knowing the different areas of strike: green zone, yellow zone, red zone, and he's absolutely right. So read up on that before you decide, I'm going to carry this. And I think a lot of people there's some really cool, I think it's Mean Leather or something like that, are making some amazing saps out there, and they're making some really cool products at a reasonable price. I'm not saying don't use them. I'm not a huge fan because it's just, there are better options out there. So legally, I think it creates some potential problems for you. Combatives, I think it creates some potential problems for you because I think there are better things for your hands to be doing. I'm going to give you a case in point. You can go online and find, there was a case where an off-duty officer was working at a Myers up in Detroit, and he has been given the role of kind of loss prevention. So he's standing at the door like they do at Walmart. Can I see your receipt? And he notices that the boyfriend of this girl is carrying some things in his hands that are not on the receipt. So he goes to restrain him and to arrest him for theft. And the boyfriend is non-compliant. He's a college-age male, and the off-duty police officer, 65-year-old male. Okay, so there's a difference in proportionality. So the law enforcement officer pulls out his ASP baton. Now I know an ASP baton, an expandable metal baton, is different from a blackjack, but bear with me for a minute because I think the lesson here is when they get into an entangled fight and he's striking large muscle groups on this young man, the young man won't go down. He tries to take him to the ground. He loses his thing and he's falling and he can't put his hand down because the hand's clutching a baton. So he kind of swings up like that awkwardly and strikes the perp in the mouth, breaking some teeth, etc. Good morning, Cody Hudson. My jiu-jitsu coach is on. I think he says happy birthday. Thanks, Cody. So I'm talking about right now an issue where an off-duty Detroit police officer is trying to subdue someone in a Myers parking lot, which is a grocery store. He strikes the young man in the mouth, accidentally if you watch the video. Long story short, he strikes him a few times. Nothing looks too violent. It didn't look that bad to me. He's forced to retire. He's indicted for aggravated assault, gets 3 years of probation. And the young man gets awarded a lot of money from Myers and from the city. So go and check that out. So my point is that what is it going to look like? Number one, what are the optics of the situation? What are the legalities of the situation? Because there's a very small window of when these blackjacks and other semi-flexible impact weapons, there's a very small window when they're legally justified. Do I want my hands tied up, screwing around with one of these, or can I find something better for them to do in an entangled fight? The other thing is, what if this tool's taken away from you? There's lots of videos you can find online of the impact weapon being taken away. I watched another video last night when preparing for this. 2 sheriff's deputies are trying to take a man into custody. You can find these online. I think they're called baton fails. And they're trying to arrest him, and they got him on the ground, and the female officer's striking the suspect in large muscle masses, his legs, while the other officer's trying to roll him over. The perp gets the impact weapon away from the female officer and starts beating her in the face with it. He gets away from the 2 officers, steals her car, and drives away. So it wasn't very effective in that case as well. And I would say another thing, as a defensive tactics trainer, you're going to see a lot of times where you lose your impact weapon in an entangled fight. And then what are you going to do? Are you trained to defend against an impact weapon? Are you trained to take away an impact weapon, retain an impact weapon? These are some complex problems, and you need to definitely think about that. And another example of this is there's a video where there's a professional MMA fighter, man, and a guy comes at him with a 2x4, and you watch this MMA fighter who has won many, many rounds in the octagon. He watches as the 2x4 hits him. I mean, you see him stand there with his hands down, and he watches himself get whacked right in the face with a 2x4 and doesn't raise his hands. And I think it's one of those instances where if you're not training on what to do, I think his brain literally just froze, like, what the heck do I do with this? So make sure you're training on those as well. Finally, so I think it creates a legal problem, it creates a combatives problem, it creates a use problem, because as we've said before, how do they work? You have to cause enough pain or you have to cause enough damage, or both, to get them to stop doing what they're doing so that you can escape. I appreciate the 24 people that are joining me this morning. It's my birthday. Thanks for being out here. We're talking about blackjacks right now. That's the gadget of this week. I've got my grandfather's trusty blackjack, his convoy blackjack he carried as a truck driver all over these states united. And now it is in my possession. And I don't see me carrying it for a variety of reasons like we talked about this morning. The legality of it, how it doesn't really tie in well with my combatives. If I was in a position where I was entangled and this is in my back pocket and I might need to use this to create space or to create a pause or to direct that attention, maybe it would work then, but it's a small window of things that I think these work well in. We talked about how a head strike with this because it's potentially lethal. There's a lot of martial arts trainers that are talking about, yeah, this is the way you use it, bro. You push the head out of the way and then take your blackjack and strike right behind the ear like that. I'm like, yeah, that's a cool story, bro. But when you do that, it's probably going to be fatal. If you're using a sap, maybe not, because it's a much wider surface area. This is not. This is a very targeted, about a 1-inch area, and if you're striking right there to the behind the ear, yeah, you're going to turn them off like a switch. You might turn them off permanently. So, is that really what you want to do? I think a better idea might be striking the jawline. If you have to, if it's really that bad of an assault you're fighting off, the jawline, the neck, taking this and striking straight to the chest with it and letting the little whipping action strike the sternum might be a good idea. Because you probably won't kill him doing any of those, but remember the context of this is everything. The context, the contextual use of this force, man, is what you need to remember. It's not, it sounds cool to say I push their face out of the way and I strike them. That will probably work, man, but contextually, is it legal? I don't know. It depends on a whole lot of variables that the martial arts trainer I was watching last night was not talking about. And the context with which here at American Warrior Society, we talk about self-defense, the defensive context of using that is very important. Just because you're in the midst of a violent, felonious assault, if the guy is unarmed, doesn't mean all bets are off, man, and you can start whacking people in the head with this, right? No, because if you do that, it's potentially lethal force. You might as well shoot them with your handgun. So, like we talked about before, man, I think there are much better self-defense options out there like OC spray, because in order to use this impact weapon, I gotta get close to him, don't I? Not necessarily with spray. So if you're using this, you're using it like a baton, more or less, a semi-flexible impact weapon. If you're using a sap, it gives you more flexibility, because I don't have a sap here, I need to get one. Wider surface area, I can rotate it around and use the edge of the sap more like a blade to attack the joints and other things. So that's all I have on blackjacks and saps. Like I said, if you want to read the history of blackjacks and saps and all the other weird stuff that are out there, guys, check out that Recoil magazine article. It was actually pretty darn good. I learned a lot about these that I did not know. Any questions for me before I jump off here and let you enjoy the rest of your day and I go enjoy my birthday? Having some friends over tonight. We're going to have a barbecue, bonfire, bourbon, and have a good one, guys. Hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Any questions for me? It says pepper spray does not work on crazy. It's worked for me on crazy, Brett. I don't know what to tell you, but California, where you were a law enforcement officer, they have a whole nother level of crazy out there, Brett. But I'm going to tell you right now, it worked really well on me. Slug shot, yeah, that's another one of those things that they call the blackjacks. Mark says, enjoy your birthday, and Semper Fi, brother. Semper Fi to you, man. Hopefully meet you someday, Mark. It's been a pleasure enjoying coffee with Rich with you. Mike says, bourbon. Any questions for me about anything we covered this morning? We covered a lot. We covered Dementia and Guns, which is an article by John, who's a social worker that is a member of the American Warrior Society. And he is, we're lucky to have him as a member. Like I said, we have SEALs, the social workers. If you want to check out the American Warrior Society, all of our articles are for free. Our podcast is free. American Warrior Society swag, like I'm wearing under this combat cardigan, that is not free, but we would love it. Mike and I would love it if you would support our brand and buy some swag. We talked about show number 205, our most recent show, I believe, with Justin Allison. Justin's going to get you set up on the Good Functional Fitness program that you're going to want to check out there. And then we talked about blackjack, saps. We talked about all the wacky stuff going on in Virginia, the attack on our law enforcement community right now. Man, it's crazy times out there. Get involved and vote. Make sure you do that. Everybody's saying happy Thanksgiving and happy birthday. Drink 3 fingers worth of it for us here in Virginia. I will, and I keep you in our prayers. Sammy says happy birthday, Kansas. Sam, you be safe out there. Sam's a law enforcement officer as well. All right, to all my brothers and sisters out there today, be safe and Semper Fi.